Nanny discovered the Millionaire's twins trapped inside the car. Her gesture will leave you shocked. The late afternoon rain in Santa Marina had vanished so quickly that people barely had time to open an umbrella. The parking lot in front of Seaside Grill glimmered with shallow puddles, reflecting a faint amber sky sinking behind the horizon. Warm moisture lifted from the asphalt, blending with sea salt and leftover fryer oil in the breeze, an atmosphere both soothing and oddly unsettling. Elena Reyes had just stepped out of the kitchen carrying a tray of drinks, her hair dampened by humidity, silently praying her shift would pass quickly so she could catch the last bus, when a faint sound sliced through the familiar clatter of dishes and ocean waves. A cry, thin, choked, and desperate. Elena stopped as if an invisible hand had gripped her shoulder. She blinked, tilted her head, trying to decide whether it was real or imagined. Then the cry returned, softer, weaker, like a plea on the verge of dying. A cold shiver ran down her spine. "No, it can't be," she whispered, but before the doubt fully formed, she set the tray down on the counter and dashed out to the front deck. The sea wind grew harsher as she hurried down the wooden steps, her worn sneakers splashing through small puddles. The sound guided her to the far corner of the parking lot, where a sleek graphite-gray SUV sat still. Too still, its presence at odds with the suffocating heat radiating from it. Elena pressed her palm against the window. The scorching warmth made her recoil. She leaned closer, and her heart plummeted. Inside, two toddlers, a boy and a girl, were flushed red, drenched in sweat, tiny hands flailing at the air as though grasping for a last trace of breath. The doors were locked. No adults, not a single soul nearby. "Oh, God!" Elena knocked hard on the window. "Is anyone here?" No answer, only the wind. Only the shallow, strangled breathing inside the car. No time left. Her heartbeat thudded so loudly it filled her ears. Elena scanned the ground and spotted a short wooden plank lying beneath the lamppost. She grabbed it, both hands trembling. Come on, Elena." But her throat was dry and her pulse hammered against her ribs like a warning bell. She swung the plank at the glass. First hit, only a tremor. Second, cracks spiderwebbed across the surface. Third, shattering, shards raining down onto the seats. Heat burst from the open window like a blow to the face, making her cough as she reached in, skin stinging as she searched for the lock. Okay, she muttered, twisting the lock and yanking the door open. She slipped her arms inside and lifted the little girl first, then the little boy. They were tiny, feather-light, burning hot, so hot that Elena knew if she had arrived even a minute later, she would have been too late. Pressing the children to her chest, she felt their faint, uneven breaths. "It's all right. I've got you," she whispered, her own voice quivering despite her effort to stay calm. Then footsteps thundered behind her. Elena spun around just as a tall man in a mist-soaked suit ran toward her, moving like the ground beneath him was collapsing. His face was hollow, and his eyes were torn open with fear and panic. Before she could fully register what was happening, his voice cracked through the humid air. "What are you doing with my children?" Elena froze, clutching the babies tighter by instinct. They were trapped in the car. I was just trying." "Give them to me." He didn't let her finish. He tore the twins from her arms, almost snatching them, and examined each child, breathing, pulse, sweat, moving with the intensity of a father staring straight into the abyss. Then his gaze stopped cold, on the embroidered blanket wrapped around the boy, a blanket so familiar that the color drained from his face. "Where did you get this?" he asked, voice low and metallic. Elena swallowed hard. "An elderly neighbor gave it to me. I didn't know whose. My wife made this blanket with her own hands." Each word felt tightened, as if he were holding something fragile and breaking inside himself. And in that instant, Elena understood. She had just saved 2 children, yet in the eyes of their father, she had become the most suspicious person he could imagine. Elena stood alone in the misty parking lot, watching Gabriel disappear into the restaurant, her hand still trembling as if the heat from the SUV clung stubbornly to her skin. Everything had happened too fast, yet his final look lingered, slow, sharp, striking exactly where she was most fragile, where an old wound had never healed. She inhaled deeply, trying to breathe it away. But she couldn't. That familiar feeling washed over her again, cold, suffocating, being doubted, punished, when all she had done was try to help. "It's okay. You're used to it," Elena whispered to herself, though her voice cracked. The image of Gabriel snatching the children repeated itself in her mind, his panic, the restrained anger, the fear so raw it blinded him. She understood, but understanding didn't make the sting any softer. A memory from when she was 15 rose suddenly like a breaking wave. Back then she worked as a babysitter for Mrs. Loretta's wealthy family, a house filled with blooming roses and warm windows at night. Elena once saw that world as distant but beautiful. Until the morning the pearl bracelet vanished. "You were the only one in my room today," Mrs. Loretta had said, eyeing her like inspecting a counterfeit object. "I didn't take anything. I swear," Elena pleaded, palms damp with sweat. But no one listened. No one wanted to. She was thrown out that cold afternoon with nothing but an old backpack and a humiliation so heavy it made her chest ache. 2 months later, the bracelet was found wedged behind a drawer. No apology followed. No one thought she deserved one. From then on, Elena learned to shrink herself, walk softly, speak little. Avoid trouble the way one avoids fire. She worked 2 jobs to send money home for her mother's medication and kept her dream of attending college like guarding a fragile candle, constantly fearing it might flicker out. A few yards away, Gabriel carried the twins into the restaurant, holding them as if loosening his grip would make them vanish. He set them on the high chairs, checked every breath, every bead of sweat, before he finally exhaled. But the tremor inside him didn't fade. "Elena, who is she? Why was she holding my kids?" Gabriel muttered under his breath, hearing only his heartbeat pounding painfully. It was almost absurd. He knew she didn't look like someone dangerous. But since losing Nina, fear had always outrun reason. Nina, whose laughter bloomed like fireworks in the night, who once turned an empty house into a haven. The illness struck like an unannounced storm. Her final 6 months were 6 months of Gabriel holding on to every fading breath, every weak smile. "I'm only afraid you'll be lonely," Nina whispered on her last night. He thought he was strong, but when she left, Gabriel collapsed like a rotted tree. From then on, he became both father and mother. Nannies came and went like scentless breezes, none able to withstand the invisible pressure he projected without realizing. Ruth, the newest one, had been instructed to stay in the car with the air conditioning on, but she vanished without explanation. And when he came back, a stranger held his children. In that instant, who Elena was didn't matter. Fear gripped him too tightly. Fear of losing something else. Fear of repeating an emptiness that had already killed him once. If he'd been calmer, Gabriel might have noticed Elena's red, blistered hands, or the tremble in her voice. But the strongest human emotion isn't anger. It is the terror of losing what one loves most, and that terror had pushed them into a terrible misunderstanding. As she remained standing in the damp parking lot, trying to steady her breath and push back the strands of wet hair sticking to her forehead, the back door of Seaside Grill swung open. The sharp clack of high heels on the wooden deck cut through the quiet like warning drums. Elena barely had time to brace herself before Corinne Barlow appeared, hair pinned tight, face carved into a cold, polished mask. Corinne's gaze swept over Elena, lingering on the glass dust clinging to her shirt and the red burn on her arm. But instead of concern, Corinne's eyebrow arched, a gesture sharp enough to make Elena feel she had just committed an unforgivable crime. "Where exactly did you disappear to during your shift, Reyes?" Corinne's voice was cold as deep water. "The kitchen is drowning, orders are backed up, and you're nowhere to be found. Do you think you can come and go as you please?" Elena parted her lips, trying to explain. "There were kids locked in a car. I heard—" "I don't care what you heard." Corinne cut her off, folding her arms. "You were supposed to be inside. We're short-staffed, and you decide to run into the parking lot to play the hero?" Elena stiffened. She hadn't expected praise, but being scolded for saving 2 toddlers hit her like a punch she wasn't prepared for. Corinne exhaled sharply, eyes narrowing. "I had an important meeting with a representative from Holt Innovations this afternoon. A 6-figure contract, Reyes. 6 figures. Today is not the day for you to create chaos." Elena blinked. So that was it. Corinne's trembling wasn't worry for the children, but fury over her ruined agenda. Instinctively, Elena stepped back, sensing the danger hanging in Corinne's tone like a blade. "And let me remind you," Corinne said slowly, each word a sharpened needle. "Know your place, Elena. Big matters aren't for someone like you to meddle in." The sentence struck her harder than a slap. Elena lowered her gaze. "I just thought that if I didn't do anything, those children might—" "You are not here to think," Corinne snapped again. "You're here to do your job." Elena fell silent. A piece of her wanted to argue, to scream that nothing in the world mattered more than a child's life. But her past whispered otherwise. Logic had never protected her from people like Corinne. Corinne stepped closer, close enough for Elena to smell her sharp, icy perfume. "I don't appreciate employees who stir things up," she murmured. "You ruined my plan this afternoon. And trust me, I don't forget." A chill raced down Elena's spine. Even though Corinne turned away with a thin smile, Elena knew it wasn't an empty threat. There was something darker than anger in Corinne's eyes. Ambition and spite. And in that moment, Elena understood she had stepped directly into the sights of the most dangerous person in this place. In the days following the parking lot incident, Elena worked more quietly than ever, hoping things would eventually settle. But once Corinne set her sights on someone, nothing ever settled. There was something in that woman's gaze, sharp, calculating, that made Elena feel as if she was standing before a storm she couldn't see but could feel creeping closer. The storm arrived sooner than she expected. That afternoon, Corinne marched into the small office behind the kitchen and slammed the door so hard the wall trembled. Elena was wiping the counter when she caught fragments of Corinne's voice. Cutting, irritated, cold as metal. "Yes, I informed him already. Someone like her shouldn't be anywhere near the Holt family." A short pause. "Of course, her background is concerning." Elena froze mid-movement. She wasn't certain Corinne was talking about her, but every instinct whispered that she was. Her heart hammered, but Elena forced herself to keep moving. Experience had taught her long ago that reacting only made things worse. Later that evening, Corinne entered the staff locker room with a gravity that made everyone stiffen. "Routine inspection," she announced, pulling open locker after locker with the self-importance of someone doing the world a favor. When she reached Elena's locker, Corinne gave a thin, paper-sharp smile. And then, as if conjured by some dark trick, a shiny gold bracelet appeared neatly atop Elena's folded towels. "Elena Reyes," Corinne called, her voice echoing like she was addressing an audience. "Care to explain this?" Elena stared at the bracelet, then at Corinne, a wave of dizziness washing over her. That's not mine. I swear I didn't. You swear? Corinne laughed softly. Everyone swears when they're caught. Staff members drifted closer, whispering, throwing Elena looks as if she'd been exposed, stealing something precious from the restaurant. That look, the same one she endured at 15, returned like a nightmare she couldn't outrun. I'll report this, Corinne said coolly. And even if this is just a misunderstanding, you'll still face consequences for damaging the restaurant's reputation. From that day on, Elena's schedule was shredded like scrap paper, the heaviest shifts, the longest hours, the dirtiest tasks. She was charged for items she didn't break, written up for mistakes she didn't make. Co-workers who once greeted her now avoided her eyes, stepping aside as if she carried something contagious. No one said anything, but their silence said enough. Elena tried to endure, telling herself, just get through this week. But exhaustion crawled deep into her bones. One late night after closing, she pushed her old bicycle out from behind the restaurant. On the seat, a small piece of paper fluttered in the wind. Frowning, she picked it up and unfolded it. The handwriting was messy, urgent. Someone is setting you up. A friend. Elena stood motionless. The world went quiet for a second. If someone was warning her, then the storm she feared wasn't just in her head. It was real, and it was getting closer every day. The message announcing an urgent all-staff meeting arrived on a gloomy afternoon when the sky over Santa Marina darkened as though warning of disaster. Elena had just tied her apron when Corinne stepped out of the office with a face so cold no one dared ask questions. The entire staff was herded into the cramped back meeting room where the yellow light felt harsher than usual. Elena entered last, trying to steady her breathing even as her palms grew damp. The moment she saw who stood at the head of the table, her heart collapsed. Gabriel Holt, and beside him a man in a dark suit, an attorney. The room, normally buzzing with chatter, fell silent until even the metallic hum of the air ducts felt loud. Gabriel didn't look at Elena. His eyes were swollen from sleepless nights, his presence heavy as stone. Corinne stepped forward, exhaling dramatically, her voice polished to perfection. "I'm sorry to announce," she began, glancing at Gabriel as if seeking approval, "that we've uncovered a very serious incident involving one of our staff members, Elena Reyes." Elena froze, breath caught in her throat. Corinne clicked her laptop. A screen lit up with text message threads, conversations between Elena and someone named Ruth. Messages implying coordination, suggesting they staged the rescue to extort the Holt family. Lines she had never written, lines that sliced into her like blades. "This is evidence of Ms. Reyes conspiring with Ms. Ruth Delgado," Corinne said. "Ms. Delgado has disappeared, but we have Reyes's call history, altered shift logs. Everything aligns." Elena shook her head, voice cracking. No, that's not me. I didn't send those messages. I never—" "Your phone did," the attorney said, tone objective yet icy. "And the data was synced through the restaurant network. It cannot be falsified." Elena turned toward Gabriel, eyes pleading. "Please, you have to believe me. I only saved your children. Gabriel finally looked at her, but it wasn't the look of someone who'd been helped. It was the look of a father pushed so deep into fear that everything blurred into threat. "I can't take risks," Gabriel said quietly, firmly. "I can't allow anyone near my children, not with even the slightest doubt." "But I didn't do anything," Elena cried, her voice breaking apart. "Please don't let them frame me. Gabriel, please." His fist tightened. "Elena Reyes, you're terminated from Seaside Grill. And from this moment, you are not to approach my family. Any violation will involve legal action." Silence swallowed the room. No one spoke. No one defended her. Eyes darted away from her like she carried something toxic. Elena felt herself falling into an invisible void. Every word she wanted to say died in her throat. She turned and walked out, her legs trembling beneath her. When she pushed the door open, rain was already pouring in sheets. The cold drops hit her face, merging with tears she couldn't wipe fast enough. Elena stepped into the storm like someone whose name had just been erased from the world. The rain from that afternoon followed Elena all the way back to her tiny rented room near the harbor district, as if the sky itself wanted to remind her that every door had slammed shut. That night, she barely slept. Each time she closed her eyes, Gabriel's cold voice echoed again, along with the unwavering look he gave her as he fired her. Just recalling it made her chest tighten until she struggled for breath. Morning arrived without bringing any hope. Elena opened her wallet and counted the remaining bills again and again. Barely enough for food, certainly not enough for rent, and nowhere near enough to send her mother's medication to Santana del Valle. The image of her mother lying on that old bed, her thin face worn down by chronic lung illness, made Elena break into tears. "I'm sorry, Mama. I'm so sorry," she whispered, confessing to herself how helpless she had become. As she wiped her tears, she suddenly remembered the note left under her bike seat days earlier. "Someone is setting you up." A friend? She had been too overwhelmed to think much of it then, but now it felt like the only fragile thread connecting her to the truth. The rain had eased when Elena walked toward the docks. She didn't know where she was going, only that her feet carried her to the only familiar place besides the restaurant, the security booth where Samir worked night shifts. And just as she was about to turn back out of shame, his voice called out, "Elena, you don't look well." She bit her lip, trying to remain composed, but the moment she saw Samir's gentle face, everything crumbled. "They fired me. They think I tried to hurt Mr. Holt's children. Samir, I swear to you, I didn't do anything." Samir was silent for a few seconds before letting out a long breath. "I believe you, and this isn't the first time I've seen Corinne pull something dirty. She's trapped 2 people before you. One had to quit, the other nearly got sued." Elena froze, her heartbeat pounding. Are you sure?" "I saw it with my own eyes," Samir said. "And I think you should look at the cameras from the night it all happened. Not the kitchen cameras. Corinne controls those. The parking lot cameras. Most people don't know this, but the system keeps footage for 30 days before overwriting." A shock of hope pierced through Elena's suffocating despair. "But what if it shows nothing?" she whispered. Samir met her eyes, sincere. "You don't have anything left to lose, Elena." She inhaled shakily, her hands trembling but resolute. "All right," she murmured. "I'll try. This is my last chance." Elena followed Samir into the old security booth where a pale fluorescent light washed over the aging control panels and dust-coated monitors. She was still trembling. She didn't know whether it was from fear, cold, or the fragile hope starting to form inside her chest. Samir clicked through the archived files and stopped at the exact hour everything had happened. "Here," he said quietly. "Prepare yourself." The video began. In the far corner of the parking lot, the graphite SUV appeared like a looming shadow. Then a figure approached from the direction of the restaurant. Elena held her breath. Corinne. She looked around carefully, pulled a key from her pocket. Samir confirmed it was Ruth's, unlocked the SUV, peeked inside, then reached in to switch off the air conditioning. She cracked the window open and snapped several photos with practiced precision. The ease of her movements sent a cold shiver down Elena's spine. "She knows exactly where the cameras are," Samir murmured. "Watch." Corinne stepped right under the lens and covered it with a cloth for 8 seconds. When she uncovered it, she walked past the SUV like any ordinary customer, sliding her phone into her pocket, her face composed and innocent. If not for the earlier footage, anyone would assume she was uninvolved. Then the screen showed Elena rushing out from the bar, her frantic shouting, the pounding on the glass, the children's cries. Every second matched her memory perfectly. Watching herself on screen, panicked, rain-soaked, desperate, made her throat knot painfully. But Samir wasn't finished. He pulled open the drawer beneath the desk and placed a thick file folder in front of her. "I found this in Corinne's office while she was in a meeting," he said. "You should look." Elena flipped it open. On the first page was a title, Crisis Creation Strategy for Increasing Favor with VIP Clients. The next page listed staff members with red circles and notes such as easily manipulated, easily blamed. Her name was at the top, and the final page chilled her to the core. A photo of the Holt twins, circled in red with the words, Strong Emotional Impact, Guaranteed Effect. Elena felt the floor tilt beneath her. Part of her wanted to scream. Another part felt a strange, overwhelming relief. She wasn't crazy. She hadn't imagined any of it. The truth was right here. She inhaled deeply, tears burning her eyes, but there was a new steadiness in her voice as she whispered, "Samir, I have to talk to Gabriel. He needs to know all of this." Samir nodded firmly. "Go, Elena. This time, you're not alone." Near midnight, Elena and Samir stood in front of the Holt estate, the warm yellow lights behind the tall glass windows, giving the house an unsettling, cold elegance. Elena clutched the USB drive in her hand, fear and determination knotting tightly in her chest. Samir gave a small nod, trying to reassure her. "Say everything you need to say. He has to hear it." The door swung open just as Elena raised her hand to ring the bell. Gabriel appeared, face tense, eyes red from exhaustion and anger. "What are you doing here? I already told you." "Please?" Elena cut him off, her breath unsteady. "Just watch this. Then I'll leave. If you want to call the police after that, I won't resist." Gabriel was about to speak, but seeing Samir behind her made him hesitate. "Fine. Come in. Quickly." Inside the spacious living room, the softened lighting did nothing to ease the tension in the air. Elena handed Samir the USB, and the video began on the large screen. Every movement of Corinne, unlocking the SUV with Ruth's key, turning off the AC, snapping photos, covering the camera, played out with unforgiving clarity. Gabriel stood frozen. Then he stepped back, pinching the bridge of his nose. "My God, I accused an innocent person." When the footage showed Elena smashing the window to save his children, Gabriel's shoulders trembled. The emotions crashing through him cracked open all at once. Shock, fury, and a deep, suffocating pain. I said those things to you?" he whispered hoarsely. Elena didn't answer. Her eyes had drifted to the baby monitor in the corner, the twins sleeping peacefully in their shared crib, unaware of the chaos that had surrounded them. Elena covered her mouth, tears spilling down her cheeks. "As long as they're safe, that's all that matters." Gabriel turned to her. This time, there was no anger, no suspicion, only raw remorse. He pressed a hand against his chest, as though confessing a sin. "Elena, I'm sorry. I let fear blind me. I hurt you in ways you never deserved." Elena bowed her head slightly. "I'm not here for an apology. I just wanted you to know the truth." "No," Gabriel said firmly. "I will make this right." He called his trusted attorney immediately, his voice low but burning with fury, as he ordered a full internal audit of the restaurant the next morning. When he hung up, he looked at Elena, his eyes holding something fragile, almost reverent. "Tomorrow," he said, "we expose Corinne. Together." Elena drew a trembling breath. For the first time in days, her chest felt lighter. "Then, tomorrow we begin." Morning at Seaside Grill had never been this silent. The ocean breeze usually carried salt and the rhythm of waves through the open doors, but today everything seemed suspended as Elena walked in with Gabriel and his attorney. Conversations halted instantly. Every gaze shifted toward her, no longer avoiding, no longer suspicious, but filled with confusion, unease, and the dread that something irreversible was about to unfold. The meeting room door swung open, and Corinne Barlow strode in with her usual confidence. Her heels struck the floor in crisp, authoritative beats, the sound of someone who believed she controlled every outcome. But the moment her eyes swept across the room and landed on Gabriel Holt, standing rigid, arms crossed, cold as a verdict already written, she froze. Her confidence cracked like wax melting under flame. "Mr. Holt, I wasn't expecting you this morning." "Sit down," Gabriel said, his voice a blade lightly scraping steel. The room went utterly still. Corinne stiffened but forced a smile. "If this is about the employee Elena..." The attorney placed a laptop on the table without a word. The screen lit up, and the video began. Everyone seemed to hold their breath as Corinne appeared, pulling a key from her pocket, unlocking the SUV, switching off the AC, cracking the window, snapping photos, then covering the camera with a cloth. Every motion deliberate, controlled, devoid of hesitation. A staff member whispered, "No way." Another covered her mouth. It was her. It was really her. Then the footage shifted to Elena sprinting out from behind the bar, panic on her face, her fists pounding the glass, the children crying faintly inside the heat. The room sank into a suffocating silence, the kind that revealed more than words ever could. Elena stood near the wall, feeling her heart finally return to her after days of torment. Relief mixed with pain, pain for what she endured, pain because all of this could have been avoided if someone had believed her. The attorney laid a stack of documents on the table. Each page landed like a blow. Crisis creation strategy. A list of easy-to-blame employees. A photo of the Holt twins circled with strong emotional impact. Corinne shot to her feet, voice cracking. "This is fake. Elena and Ruth tried to extort Mr. Holt. You're all being manipulated." "Enough." Gabriel stepped closer, his eyes sharp as lightning. "You endangered my children. You destroyed the reputation of an innocent woman, and you thought you'd walk free?" Fear finally wiped the arrogance off Corinne's face. Her lips trembled, color draining from her cheeks. But it was too late. The door opened again, and 2 police officers entered. "Corinne Barlow, you are under arrest for child endangerment, evidence fabrication, and attempted extortion." "No, you don't understand. I was only..." She was handcuffed in front of the entire staff. Several employees began crying, not for her, but from guilt. As Corinne was escorted out, Elena felt something inside her loosen, as if a heavy chain she'd carried for weeks finally fell away. Gabriel turned to her, sincerity softening his expression. "Elena, you were treated terribly. That ends now." And for the first time in weeks, Elena finally took a full breath. Justice had come. That afternoon, after the police escorted Corinne away, and the restaurant fell into an uncanny silence, Gabriel invited Elena to the wooden benches overlooking the sea behind Seaside Grill. The salty wind swept through, carrying with it a relief she thought she had lost forever. Gabriel stood quietly for a moment, gathering his thoughts before turning toward her, his voice deeper but softer than she had ever heard. "There's something I've been meaning to tell you," he began. "My wife, Nina. Before she passed, she founded a project called Lighthouse, a place for vulnerable children, a space where they could learn, play, and feel safe." Elena lifted her gaze gently. "A children's center?" Gabriel nodded, a flicker of sorrow crossing his eyes. "Nina always said, if we don't create light for them, the world will swallow them whole. But after she left, the project stalled. I didn't have the strength to continue." Elena looked down at her hands. She understood too well. When a dream is tied to someone you love and they disappear, sometimes the dream becomes too painful to touch. Gabriel drew a steady breath. I want to revive the project, a real center, and I want you to be the lead coordinator. Elena blinked, startled. Me? But why me? Because Nina would choose you, Gabriel answered without hesitation. Because you have the heart this place needs. You don't abandon children, even when you're the one hurting. Someone like you was born to bring light. The words lodged in Elena's throat. It had been years since anyone believed in her like that. She nodded slowly, warmth blooming inside her chest. If I can help, I will. I promise. The next day, they visited an old building near the docks, the place Nina once dreamed of turning into the center. The walls were peeling, the windows dusty, but Elena saw something beautiful beneath the layers of time. News spread quickly. Volunteers, teachers, painters, students, even locals, began showing up, offering their hands and hearts, as if the Lighthouse Project was truly being lit again, one spark at a time. Elena stood in the wide room as the scent of fresh paint drifted softly and the afternoon sun spilled through the windows. For the first time in weeks, she didn't feel lost. She belonged here, and she knew a new beginning had finally arrived. 6 weeks passed so quickly that Elena sometimes startled when she paused to look back. The old building by the harbor, once damp, cracked and silent, had transformed into lighthouse, warm, bright, and filled with laughter. The walls were painted in gentle colors, the reading corner lined with soft pillows and warm lights, and the play area stocked with safe toys handmade by volunteers. Every morning when Elena unlocked the doors, she felt as though she were stepping into a world she once believed existed only in dreams. Samir became the head of security, always with a walkie-talkie clipped to his belt, though his gentle smile never changed. If you keep skipping meals because of work, I'll have to file a report, he joked, making Elena laugh every time. And Gabriel. He came by more often than she ever expected, sometimes bringing new books for the reading nook, sometimes fixing the swing that kept getting stuck, sometimes simply standing off to the side watching his children play, his gaze softer than she had ever seen. Once he murmured almost to himself, I'm relearning how to be a father, and it's harder than I thought. Elena understood. Everyone here was healing a part of themselves. One afternoon, while Elena guided the children in painting the sky and sea, she received a call from Santana del Valle. Hearing that her mother was responding well to treatment and improving steadily, she burst into tears right in the classroom, and the children hugged her legs as if sharing her joy. In the days that followed, a quiet, steady bond grew between her and Gabriel. Nothing rushed, nothing forced, just conversations that stretched a little longer, glances that felt calmer, and silences that no longer felt awkward. One sunset, Gabriel approached carrying a small fabric-wrapped box. Elena, he said softly, like the ocean breeze, I think it's time this found the place it belongs. Inside was the embroidered blanket, soft, worn, but carrying the warmth of Nina's hands. Elena froze. Gabriel, I can't accept this. Nina would want it with the woman who saved our children, he said, his voice sincere enough to make her heart turn gentle. Outside, the twins were laughing, then running toward them, grabbing both their hands. The sea wind passed by, bringing with it salt and the fading glow of the sun touching the glass windows. Gabriel looked at her. Do you believe in second chances? Elena looked at him, then at the children leaning against her legs. A slow smile rose on her lips. After everything, I do. As the sun dipped below the horizon, Elena draped the embroidered blanket over her shoulders, locked the doors of the Lighthouse Center, and walked forward. No rush, no fear, Only the beginning of a new chapter, gentle as a light finally rekindled.